Hi everyone, it's Nicole here today with a couple of shadow box cards featuring new Lawn Fawn, Ocean, and Theater add-on dies to create these adorable little scenes with the shadow box card. This is an interactive pop-up card that they released a while ago, and I love, as always, that Lawn Fawn really comes out with add-ons that are fantastic for building upon collections and products that they've already released. This just gives us more options for creating some amazing designs. I am using the Shadow Box die and then the Shadow Box add-ons to die cut all of my elements. Now, I did this off camera to save some time. I also used the Gemini die cutter. It was super easy to lay my papers out, die cut multiple dies out of multiple different colors of cardstock. I'm showing here all the different elements from the Ocean Shadow Box add-on. So you can see there's seaweed, coral, a whale, that little, the ocean borders, a banner, bubbles, all of these things. And then that fish I'm using is actually from the Porthole frames, and I think he works really well with this whole collection. Now I'm going to go ahead and start putting it together, doing those finishing, or not finishing, I guess, but getting all of those things ready to put the card together. I've got several different layers there, and I'm going to show you step by step how to put this together and how to do it easily. Now, what I'm doing here is taking some greetings from the Manatee-rific stamp set and stamping them on that vellum banner. It's going to say "Celebrate Your Day," which is, I think, a cute and perfect for lots of different ocean or water-themed cards. I just went through my Lawn Fawn collection and found a greeting that I thought would work. And on the back of the card, I'm going to share with you how I customize it and give myself a place to either write a message to the recipient or sign my name. So because this is kind of a scene, and this is something that the recipient could set on their desk or shelf or whatever it might be, this is fantastic for visual effect, but there's not a great place on the front of the card really to write a message or anything, so I like to do that on the back, and I'll share that in a bit. I'm using an acrylic block, and I showed how I flipped the banner over to the back side, lined up my greetings because it's wavy and I want my greetings to follow that wave for a more natural look. Then flipped my banner back over, stamped that greeting. It's the best way I have found to line up sentiments like this. I'm sprinkling on white embossing powder, and then I'm going to heat set this. One of my very favorite ways to create a banner. What's great about a vellum banner like this is you can still see through it to the elements that are behind it, which in this case we're going to have some seaweed and coral and a shell. So things like that look really great. Not completely covered up. My second card share with the theater is going to share a white banner just to show you a couple of variations. I also want to mention this first card, other than the stamped greeting on the front and back, is completely created with dies. Now, I think it's really kind of essential to have a bone folder and a good bone folder. I use this Teflon one from Simon Says Stamp. It does not leave a shiny streak there anywhere you use it, just to get the folds on cards like this really, really good. Having your card scored and folded well makes for when you fold this to put it in an envelope and then take it back out, it's going to pop up into the shape really beautifully. Another tip is I like to use score tape to put my boxes together. And I also don't put the whole thing together until I get those inside panels in. The reason I do this is because it's really hard to put those inside pieces inside a pop-up card, whether it be the pop-up card or the shadow box card, unless you do it when it's flat. You can do it, and I'm going to even show you how I added an extra piece on my second card, but it's tricky. If you're going to do any inking or anything like that, I suggest doing it first. The short panels are the side panels, and that's where you're going to want to put any of your layers. So I am keeping it flat, just kind of checking things out here. I'm going to ink up all 4 of my ocean layers. This card features 4. You could truly do as many layers as you want to inside of your shadow box. I tend to like to stick to 3 or 4. More than that tends to get a kind of full, and it just doesn't look quite as good, I don't think. But you could do as many as you want. Look at it as the layers on your card. So you're going to kind of want to stack these so that you can see each layer. My first layer generally lines up with that bottom edge of the card, and from there I kind of shift them up. So I put my first one down. Another thing I did was die cut from like 4 different shades of 3 or 4 different shades of aqua teal cardstock for variation, but to still keep it very tone on tone, which I'm a big fan of. So here I'm shifting it up a little bit. I'm using that bottom one as a guide. We want these to be as flat as possible. I'm only attaching one side at this point. When we get all 4 of these inked and adhered where we want them to go, we will attach the other side and put that box together. But I think it's so much easier if you've seen me do the pop-up card or a shadow box card here on my channel in the past. This is how you want to do it. I promise it makes it so much easier. In fact, I left in the fact that I added an extra border inside of the theater card to show you how hard it is to add one later on and get it lined up. It's just super tricky. Now, before I attach anything and finish that, I am going to add my Celebrate banner, and I'm just going to put a little dab of liquid glue on one side. Another tip for doing projects like this where it's dimensional, it might be hard to keep things flat. I love to use my tweezers to hold that in place. In fact, you're going to see me do that over and over again for all the little elements here. I'm going to put a little glue on them, put the tweezers to help hold them, position them in place just for a few seconds, maybe a minute. It's going to hold that down and keep the image or the element where I want it so that I don't have to worry about it shifting and moving. I used a little Lucky Clover Distress Oxide ink to ink up my seaweed. I'm taking some thin acetate strips. These are usually left over from shaker cards. I keep those scraps, cut them into thin strips, and then I'm adhering my bubbles to these. That's because when I do shadow or pop-up cards, I love having elements popping up all over the place. And in order to do that, I need a clear material so that it looks like my bubbles are kind of just floating up above those waves. So these are just really thin scraps of cardstock that I attached my bubbles to. The bubbles were die cut from 2 colors of light blue cardstock for a little bit of fun interest, and when I'm all finished, I will add some glossy accents to these to add even more detail. Picked raspberry for my clamshell, abandoned coral for the fish, and that's pretty much, I think, all of the inking for these elements. A little black soot, I guess, for the whale, and I'm being very careful. I only want to ink the edges. I do not want to lose that beautiful light gray color of the whale. However, I do want to have some detail so that it really matches the waves, the fish, the seaweed, all of those things. Now this is, if at all possible, I like to attach as much as possible before I put my card together, before I secure the box, before I secure those panels. It's easiest for the front panel for me. Once I get to the waves, I tend to like to have the box put together so I can see exactly where everything's going to fall. And that way I don't have anything right in front of another element, because that kind of ruins the whole effect. You can see I'm using my tweezers again to get my layers of seaweed and coral We'll do another little piece over here on the left side. That last one I die cut more than I actually needed for my shadow box, but I can use any leftover elements to decorate the back of my box, which I'll show you here in a little bit. Just gonna pop my tweezers underneath my banner to hold that little clamshell in place. Now the eyes for my whale and fish, I decided to go with Google Eyes here. I thought they'd add a fun decorative element. This is going to go to a child, my niece actually, and so I thought, well, I think she would really appreciate that. I think that's a really fun whimsical touch. You could add Google stickers, you could go ahead and inlay an eye with black cardstock if you wanted to, whatever you want to do there. Now I'm removing the backing paper from the tabs. Before you put the box together, remove those, make sure they're lined up, and then fold that other short side over on top of those, and look at that. They are perfectly lined up. You can go ahead and remove that final tab then, lay your card flat again, line that up, and just like that, the card is perfectly aligned and we're ready to finish embellishing. Once you've done it a couple times, it's so easy. My favorite thing about this shadow box pop-up, and a question I get asked a lot, is if it fits in an A2 size envelope, and it does. So you don't have to buy a special envelope for this. This is going to fit right in your A2 envelope, and you can mail it super easy. When the recipient gets it, they can simply pop it up. Next to the eyes, I did add some eyelashes for the critters inside my box, just with a black fine tip pen. Then I'm using my tweezers again to hold my elements in place while my liquid glue dries. You may notice in the finished card, my fish has some dot detail. The seaweed has dot detail. I did this after I put my box together. I think if I would do it again, I would have added the Nouveau drops before, but it really does work pretty good if you keep it flat, like on its back like this. I am ready to attach my floating bubbles, and I just want to make sure they're I want it to look like it's kind of coming up from the fish's mouth. I don't want it to be covering up the whale too much. I'm using glue dots to attach these. I find the glue dots work fantastic. Liquid glue does not work as great with this acetate. I think it has a tendency to, when it dries, they pop off, but glue dots do not. So I would recommend a nice strong adhesive. Score tape would also be fine. And it works really great. We're going to have one coming up kind of from the fish, and then one here in the back from the whale, or just maybe another critter that's under the water, who knows. But those little floating elements really add so much. Now my fish popped off. I didn't leave my tweezers there apparently long enough, so we're just going to put him back and hold that down until that dries. I felt like my background needed something, so I'm going to add a light blue sky with some Simon Says Stamped sea glass cardstock, and then we're going to pop a little sun kind of going down over the horizon of the water and ocean waves. The little panel was just directly a panel from the shadow box card. And the sun is from the Sun and Moon dies from Lawn Fawn. And I inked it up with a little Wild Honey Distress Oxide ink to match the inking of the rest of the elements. And I think that little touch there really adds a lot. So those are the two die collections I used for that. And that really finishes off the inside of the card. I did die cut another panel using the shadow box die collection, just like my sky in the background. And on this one, I used greetings from the Happy, Happy, Happy add-on, as well as the Reveal Wheel Sentiments, to stamp a birthday greeting with clear embossing ink and heat embossed with white embossing powder. This is going to decorate the back of my card. So any leftover elements I had, which I think I just had the seaweed, I went ahead and die cut another fossil piece from red cardstock, and I die cut another fish from the Porthole frames and some bubbles. And those are going to be used to decorate the back panel. So that's going to fit right on that back panel of the card. So it gives you that perfect little spot to add your name or maybe just write a quick little message to the recipient, but it doesn't take away from the overall look on the pop-up or the shadow box. And even for something flat, tweezers work great to hold it down if you're using a liquid adhesive. And I folded my card flat, put a little adhesive on the back there, and then we're just going to pop this in place, center it right there. This piece I used here, or this die, it can also create a window. It comes with the original shadow box card and just gives you another option, or you can use it here because it's going to be perfectly sized to create this little panel. Next, I'm going to show you the theater card, and at the end of the video, I will show you the finished result of both cards. So again, I did die cut the elements off camera. This theater add-on has curtains. It's got this little curving stitched border. It has a different opening with little notched corners, which you don't see as well here. I put my curtains on the front. I really played with it a lot, couldn't decide. But if you wanted to use it differently, you will see more of that detail. And I love that these all work together. So you can really mix and match the different openings. The original shadow box card has 2 different rectangle sizes and an oval, plus a couple of stitched hills, which will work really well with this one. So if you want just a variety, I think it would work really well. And just, I love that they mix and match. I'm even using the banner from the Ocean add-on for my card here. And I went ahead and already stamped sentiments from the Critter Concert stamp set. Now this is an example of using both dies and stamped images for this shadow box card here today. I die cut the little curtain tie backs from gold glitter cardstock, and I really felt like the curtains got a little lost behind the opening maybe, so I decided to put mine on the front to make a more of a focal point. And you'll see as I go about putting my card together, again doing as much as possible before I actually secure my box card. I'm going to do another set of curtains in the back for that additional just dimension and layer. One of the things I try really hard to do with these shadow box or pop-up cards is make sure that the layers all really work together and it gives you that complete scene. Very much like you would get on a regular card where you're adding layers, maybe even adding foam adhesive to get those layers and things. It's very much the same feeling. So I always want to make sure my background is really great too. So on the Ocean card, we added the blue sky and the sun, and that gave us that nice depth and dimension. On this one, we're going to have the 2 different layers of curtains. So the curtains here on the front of the card and then the curtains in the back. You also might be wondering about the little white dots on the curtains because in the finished card, they are not there. I originally thought I was really going to like the Nuvo crystal drops on the curtain. I did not. So I actually pulled this off and die cut the top of the curtains again and went ahead and adhered that to my card. It may have been okay. I don't know. It wasn't working for me today. Just like our Ocean card, we're going to put some adhesive on the tabs of the borders or these little inserts. And then we're going to place them on one of the short sides. And we want to kind of stagger them so that you get that dimension. I accidentally put this one up way too high, so we're going to just start over and put a little bit more of the score tape on this Score tape is my favorite for this because it's just a nice strong adhesive. But you could definitely use a liquid adhesive or something else if you wanted to. Lining up that first one with the bottom of the card generally is what I like to do. It works the best. Now this is where I just went ahead and did 2 first, and I'll have to try to put the third one in a second. So I'm going to lay down my borders, peel off that little backing paper. And then I went ahead and secured those to the other side and put my box together. I did die cut those second set of curtains. So this is what I was talking about a second ago. And I went ahead and put them together. This was easier with the box put together because they cover up that seam where that little tab secures the box. So for this step, I really did need the box together. And it was completely after I did this that I thought I really need a third border or a third little insert to kind of help round it all out. I felt like these two were too close to the front of the box. There was nothing further in the shadow box, and that just didn't really work for me very well, I guess. You can also see this is where I pulled off that front curtain and put another one on. What's great is because these are made to fold flat to fit in an envelope, you can just push them down flat to put these pieces in, and I think that is fantastic. And I think the more that you work with them and fold them, the easier they fold and that they fit in the envelope. And I have found that the cards, once they're put together, will more naturally go one way than the other. And so kind of work with that till you see that. And again, at the end of the video, I'm going to show you them in envelopes so you can see how they fit and how I take them out. Now, what I need for my card here is a couple of critters that I wanted to match my greeting, that toot your own horn. So I picked the bear holding the trumpet, and then the little fox, and music notes, plus the bird, and then he's going to kind of, I think, be the band leader here. And then I'm going to color these in with Copic markers. We're going to die cut them. The music notes, there's a set that has 4 notes, and then there's 2 individual notes. Just like the ocean card, this card's going to have acetate little picks, I call them, with the music notes attached to them floating up above. How fun is that? This is just one of my very favorite things about these dimensional cards, is using those elements so that it looks like the music notes are floating up from these cute little critters playing their instruments. In the finished card, you'll notice that the instruments are glittery, gold glittery, but you're going to see me color them gray. For whatever reason, I have the worst time coloring my instruments with gold or brass colors. These brass instruments like this, I just couldn't figure out what markers to use. So I went with grays, and even though I know they're not gray, and I really didn't like the color combination, but it did end up working as a great base for me to then go ahead and take some gold glitter translucent Nouveau crystal drops and color over them so that they have a gold glittery finish. I like the little touch of glitter. I like how it ties back to the tiebacks on the curtains, and I think it gives a much better look to the instruments, so you'll see that here in a little bit too. The colors of Copic markers I'm using for everything on my card are shown across the top of the screen for easy reference. Once I have everything colored, and I did forget to color in the wand, so once I get everything die cut, I'll just use some cool grays to color that in real fast. These little critter concert guys are so cute. There's even a little owl playing a violin, a raccoon playing a flute, so you could do all kinds of different things. As I mentioned, I picked the critters with horns because I thought it really tied back to the sentiment I was using really well. This is a great encouragement or congratulation type of card for somebody who maybe, you know, has had some good news and you want to send them a fun little card. I'll die cut all of these images with the coordinating dies, just using my little snips to cut those apart, die cut those easily. Those music notes are pretty teeny tiny. Here is the Nuvo Crystal Drops in gold. This is that translucent gold. So once dry, it's going to dry pretty clear, but still have that gold finish, and you're still going to be able to see the instrument real well. And we can start putting everything together. The fox and the bear are going to go on a couple of layers in here. The bird is going to be really sitting up here, kind of almost on top of the banner. So this is where it's going to, I went ahead and attached him to a clear pick as well. Anything that you want sticking up from one of the borders, even if you're not really going to see that clear pick very well, they work great. They secure your images so well to a card and really make it fantastic. So see how he's going to sit there right on top of the banner, but that little clear pick hides the element that is used to do that. And you could even do this on your regular cards too if you ever need to hide something or have it kind of coming up from a border. Little thin pieces of acetate like this are fantastic for that. We're going to glue his wand in his hand. I love that the Critter Concert also has a music stand, a music book, a little bow if you want to put a bow in their hair. There's cymbals, a triangle, a tambourine. So you could really give these little guys all kinds of fun instruments. You could take other critters you have from the Lawn Fawn collection, give them instruments if you really want to. Maybe make, I think, a long skinny card with lots of them would be super fun too. So there is the bear on one of the borders, and you can see that I set my Shadow Bucks card down on top of my fox that had wet Nuvo Crystal Drops. I left that in because I think that's real and I wanted you guys to see. Luckily, just like the ocean card, I'm going to cover the back of the box with a panel so that I can write a message for the recipient, but this is probably a good reason to do the Nuvo Crystal Drops last. So there's my little box. I love these little things. I think they're just so much fun. Just like the bubbles and the bird, I'm going to attach the music notes now to those clear picks, and we want to pop those up throughout the card. Just position them, kind of just, it's trial and error. I want them to be visible with the box open, but I don't want them to kind of cover up the critters. So the longer music note I went ahead and did in the back, and then the other two are going to be floating in the front. Isn't that cute? I just think this is really, really fun. And I lost my little clear pick, so I'll go ahead and do that too. Now on the back, I stamped another greeting from Critter Concert with clear embossing ink, heat embossed with white embossing powder, and then added some extra music notes. So here is my first envelope with the ocean card. You can see how it comes out so easy and pops right up. Isn't that awesome? Just really, really fun, you guys. Such a great, easy pop-up card. Interactive. I think any recipient would love to get this. Here's the Critter Concert card. Same thing. Fits right in that A2 sized envelope. You can pop it right out, open it up, and a cute little Critter Concert scene is inside this theater box card. Thank you guys so much for joining me today for these interactive shadow box pop-up cards featuring the theater add-on die collection and ocean die collection. The supplies I used to create my cards are listed and linked below the video here on YouTube. Here are a couple more cards featuring Lawn Fawn stamps and dies that you might be interested in. Thank you guys so much for joining me today, and we'll see you next time.